here with Jack Sai, one of my mates, and we're gonna talk a little bit about maybe some of our experiences, and we're both YouTubers, content creators as well. So Jack's a pretty cool guy. So want to introduce yourself and talk a bit about what you do.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Jack. 24 years old. I don't know why that matters. Probably most well known for being a 3-time Rubik's Cube world record holder, and that sort of led me to making Rubik's Cube TikToks for work. And because that's online, I kind of traveled to a bunch of random places. Most notably living in Mexico and Colombia for 6 months total, and it's coming back about a month ago. So yeah. Brief intro.
Some of you guys probably know who I am if I'm publishing this on my channel, but I'm Darren Yu. I'm a watercolor artist here in Melbourne, Victoria, and I also do videos, reviews on flashlights and stuff like that. But we actually we were just talking, we had lots of chats before about a whole variety of topics, and thought might as well just turn the camera on and
that's cool.
And chat. Feels a little bit different now.
Yeah, I know we have like the gear and like
we had the couches before, we were just sitting back in the couches, and it was a little more different. But once the camera's on, it's almost a little bit more. But who cares? What we were talking about before, I think I was really interested about your travels and how we have quite different experiences in terms of our work life.
Because I didn't really have one to begin with.
And that really fascinates me, in terms of most people go to uni or get out of school, get a job in some sort of field, and then you just work in that job for your whole life. But you've never had that sort of experience. You've gone, you probably explained it a little bit better, but you've managed to turn something that you enjoy, something you really love, into your actual job. So
so I just during high school, university, I did a lot of Rubik's Cube solving as like a hobby, just to pass the time. And I think when I was starting off with uni, I started getting really good at it and ended up breaking a couple of national records, did some world records, and then started making more content around that. And then that sort of led to a bunch of things happening. And then the official Rubik's Cube company got in touch with me and was like, hey, you want to make TikToks? This use social media app, and we need people on it. And I've just been working with them for the past couple of years pretty much.
So you're pretty young when they reached out to you, Rubik's, at the time?
Oh yeah, I think I was on beginning of 2021. So I was 21, 22 or something.
Yeah.
It's a couple of years ago.
That's amazing, because when I was 2021, that same age, I just finished uni and just ended up applying for different jobs.
Yeah.
And man, that would have been so cool if I had something like that as well. But I had no idea, at the time, I just had no idea that you could actually start your own side projects.
But I guess there's there's quite a big sort of difference with the time. You're 34, if I remember.
Yeah, 34.
But so it's a decade ago. All of this digital nomad, being a YouTuber kind of stuff, that wasn't really it. I mean, there was Tim Ferriss and he did stuff. But I mean, it was way less of a thing back then. So it would have been a lot harder. So there's also I guess different in times. And I mean, the type of stuff I'm doing is still pretty uncommon, of course, but it's going on the rise a bit, I think.
Yeah, and we had, obviously, YouTube was still out then, but the variety of content was very limited.
Yeah, and I think people were really making money, or at least it was pretty limited.
Yeah, I mean, you got some of those guys that started out and they've grown their channels quite large because there was just no content out there, or less content out there. But it just wasn't really talked about how you could potentially start your own business or something from that. There was, you're kind of flying blind, whereas now you can just go on YouTube and there's 100 people that will show you how to do it. I think it's a really unique time, and we were talking about how we watch sort of similar channels like Dan Co.
On
sort of the information age, and one person business kind of thing, and how it's only possible in this time in history that you can actually do this sort of thing with so little resources. Really, you used to have to advertise, and I think it's a great opportunity. It's really exciting, but it's not very common here in Australia. Like we were talking about
Oh
this
yeah,
bit
yeah,
before.
yeah, for sure.
But I mean, it seems to be like a very US sort of thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think culture also has to do with it, like somewhat. I've heard like there's more of an entrepreneurial. Maybe it depends where you are in the US as well, but like from what I've heard, like more people pursuing that kind of stuff, and maybe culturally, it's like people are more so incentivized to do that, whereas Australia is more of like a yeah, you don't really have as much of sort of people sort of reaching out for their dreams, or like it's kind of like very sort of equal egalitarian kind of, which I mean has its pros and cons, of course. But yeah, that kind of like reaching out for like those really ambitious like different things, like yeah, culture's incentivized that as well.
Is it the tall poppy syndrome, man?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if, because I've never been to America before. You've been there for a short time, but like these people there seem to be very much like, you know, into entrepreneurism and just starting their own business. It seems to be like a much of a norm over there than over here. I mean, we were talking before about how we've met some people, other YouTubers and people who, have done some stuff like that in Australia, but it's not so common.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty rare here.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like before we had like so many things to talk about, then suddenly when the camera's rolling, it's
Yeah,
like,
I find it interesting also how like maybe like we were talking about environment and stuff also, but more in the context of like living in different countries and how that affects like the way you behave and all of that. But I'm also thinking in terms of like from a podcasting environment side of like point of view, it kind of feels almost like I don't know, it's different kind of having like this setup like this, whereas like on a couch it's just like I don't know, I want to have like body language effects like the way we talk and all of that. And I also noticed this because I studied violin at university and like
you study body language.
a violin.
Oh, violin.
And then like my teachers like I play like a lot more expressively or better when I stand up versus sitting down. So I find it interesting. Yeah, just a random tangent.
Do you still play violin these days?
Not so much. I just teach like a little bit of it. Also, it's like an income source. Yeah, not a whole lot. I'm kind of just exploring a bunch of other stuff.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, namely it's like writing online. For some reason that kind of interests me a lot because I think it's very focused on like the ideas and like novel thoughts and then like different perspectives, and then I can kind of convert, as Dan Kerr says from the what's it one person business thing, like you can kind of convert that piece of writing to like a bunch of other different types of content anyway. So that's what I'm kind of exploring right now.
Yeah, I think. I mean, everything starts out with an idea that you write down at the beginning, and so even for me, when I come up with watercolor courses, it's photographs that I take of places I visit, places, videos, and just ideas that some of my students might ask me about, like, oh, we really like your beach landscapes or something like that, and so we want to. Can you do some more? Can you do some more about that? And so I'll just start out just writing a bit of a course outline, and from there it turns into something.
Yeah.
I think, but coming from, we both come from Asian backgrounds and stuff. I didn't ask you this before, but in my family, it was like doing art was a very, culturally frowned upon thing, but it was not encouraged. It was like, okay, how are you going to make money from this?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You're wasting your life away. What you need to be a doctor or something, an engineer or a lawyer or something like that. What were your parents like, or what are they kind of like now?
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky, I think, in this aspect. My parents are a lot more sort of accepting and stuff. And I mean, my dad's also like a violin teacher of like 30 years, so he's like managed like a whole lot of different people, maybe some writers, some like maybe have like, so it's like he's seen like a lot of different people and also worked and seen them. So I feel like he's a lot more open-minded and like, while he doesn't really understand what the hell I'm doing so much, he's like, he kind of accepts it, and I'm still living with my parents, and it's kind of good. So I'm kind of lucky in that aspect. But I do realize from talking to a lot of other people from Asian backgrounds, it's like definitely, I feel like what we're doing is almost like the antithesis of what's sort of like promoted in Asian culture, where it's a lot of it's around sort of stability, which is why people are like be doctor, be lawyer, because it's like there's like very high paying sort of stable jobs, and then I guess what we're kind of doing kind of goes against that. So I think that's why maybe for a lot of people it can be really sort of jarring for like the parents or something to hear about that. But then it's like I mean, once again, I'm kind of luckier and privileged in my position. My parents are more accepting, but I mean, if they weren't, then it'd be a matter of like, what do I prioritize more, like my parents' opinions or what I want to do with my own life? And, you kind of have to decide the answer for that.
Mm. I really admire that you've actually like you've never considered actually going into you said you did like 2 weeks or something
Oh yeah,
on a
like I was
job
like a primary
and
school like assistant. I mean, like
yeah.
maybe like around like that time, that was like 2017, 2018. I was still thinking about getting like some like a violin teaching job or something. Um, I think it was only maybe a bit. Oh, I remember this was like maybe towards the end of 2018, 2019 when I was like, I want to maybe be like a YouTuber or something. That was kind of when I started taking that sort of more seriously. So I think I wasn't always like that, but I think like it sort of hit a point where like I kind of thought like maybe I was going to make the change. And I think I was like, there was a time where I tried telling my parents, I was like really so scared what would they think, and like, oh my God, and I think procrastinated for weeks or something. But at the end of the day, I kind of told them like this is kind of what I wanted to do. Yeah, and then yeah, I think they were surprisingly accepting of it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I do once again realize that's not very common.
Yeah,
And then I think once I committed to that, then that was kind of like my main sort of focus and my way of thinking around making this sort of like independent sort of life sort of work. I didn't end up focusing on being a YouTuber specifically associated towards other paths, but like just getting to the mindset of like this is my main thing, and then like I don't want to work like a normal sort of job. Like that way of thinking is compounded for like 4 years to me, so it kind of feels like this is like the only way I can go now. So even if I wanted to go to do like the 9 to 5 or something, which a lot of people struggle to get out of, it's like
yeah.
hard for me to get into it. So it's like I'm on the other side somewhat, and so it's interesting.
And it's funny because like when you've worked in a 9 to 5 for so long, even if you have the means to quit, there's that mental roadblock of having done something for so long, having committed all that time, and a job is also you get a bit of status with it as well. It forms a part of your identity, and you think to yourself, well, if I don't have this job, then what do I do? And having something like that's one of the reasons also why I started my own YouTube channel and started making videos. And I mean, it's not just a YouTube channel, but it's a lot of people think that people just make money from the videos themselves, but it's really it's funny. I think it was it Alex Hormozy who was saying something about in the current age like you get paid to market yourself.
Right, yeah.
Because you're making videos which are basically about your own business or whatever projects you're working on, and you're getting paid for that, whereas before you'd have to obviously pay to get that out, which you still can do. So it's almost it's an amazing opportunity. And I think the biggest thing for me is having to unlearn stuff. And I'm 10 years older, and we're talking about how I can remember being in my early 20s and being like just so flexible with changing jobs. Like I had probably 12 different jobs in my 20s. I tried all different kinds of things. I was basically careers sort of jobs counselor for young kids. Worked in recruitment, worked in all kinds of random jobs, and it was okay for me. Like I found that I could just quit a job in 2 months, no problem. But now, as you get older, you kind of value that stability at the same time. But then I see a lot of people that are in their 50s and stuff, and they've been working in the same job for so long, and which is fine. But they've also left aside some of their dreams and their ambitions, something that maybe or may not make them some money. Like art, for example. And for me, I was like, if I don't give it a try, if I don't do it, the regret's gonna hurt much more than if I, just continue doing what I was doing and take the safe path. And we're in Australia anyway. I mean, what's there to lose? Even if you lose your job, I kind of think about it this way. Even if you lose your job, I mean, there's so many safety nets here. It's almost more of a risk not to take it.
That's how I feel. Yeah, it's like the opportunity cost of like, what if you don't pursue like the life you want to do like earlier on versus like postponing it for like later on. And I kind of deduced like pretty early on that it just wasn't like really like worth doing like the job. It just sort of like, I think no real purpose to me. I mean, like obviously the main reasons like money, but I kind of realized that I'm pretty frugal, and also more importantly, I value certain things more than like money for the most part. And I mean, I had a bit of money coming in, of course, like the TikToks and violent teaching, so I have that too. But it's like, how much money like do you need? And then like, it also, of course, like living here is expensive as well. So there's a bunch of other factors to consider. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to what do you prioritize and working backwards from there. Also, from like, at least to me, I just work from like first principles as well. Just like, yeah, I think that's important.
I find you pretty mature, like really mature
Thanks.
for your age. Because I can say definitely when I was 23, 24, like all I wanted to do was just earn lots of money, and I was just all interested in cars, motorbikes, spending money on drinks, doing a lot of stupid stuff, and I wasted a lot of money. But after time, I've just realized that stuff doesn't make me happy. A lot of those friends that I had back then, not really friends, just ones that we'd hang out and have a drink with. And the good friends that I have these days, that I can't even count them on one hand, probably. And we're talking about as well how sometimes as you go through different stages in life, friends that you would have got along with really well. And it's not to say there's anything wrong with them or with yourself or anything like that, but you may just be going on different paths, and you find that you can't really connect anymore to them. And I like how that you're so into like meeting new people and the travel. Like you're not just going to a place to go on a holiday and just to have fun and drink. And you hear a lot of guys going to, like you've been to Colombia, a lot of guys going to Colombia to just sleep with girls and stuff like that. But you're not like that at all. You're there to learn the language. You're there to like gain a new perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't know. I know where that was going.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess shit, what was I gonna say?
Yeah. Do you having like traveled to Colombia and then coming back to Australia, it's a bit of a culture shock.
Oh yeah. That's sort of interesting. Like a reverse sort of culture shock. Yeah. I think like, yeah. I mean, like, okay, obviously there's like benefits of like Australia, and like I talk like a lot of Colombians, like both in Colombia and also Colombians who come here to learn English. And it's like stuff like safety, like kind of take for granted. That's pretty like solid. Things like quality of like, I don't know, buildings of opportunities for people, at least like in-person jobs, etc. Like those all like a lot greater like pay. Once again for like in-person jobs. So it's like a lot of good things, but then it's like you kind of sort of, there's certain aspects that are sort of, I think it's sort of interesting, cultural observations. I think one problem I've seen a lot of people have is like, it's like a lot of like problems like loneliness, sort of sadness, like at least in like the society.
In here in Australia,
Yeah.
you mean?
From what I've heard, yeah.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
would
think
say
about
so.
that? Yeah.
Well, like, would you say some people say like Australian culture is very open, but I find one of the things that like a lot of travelers, people that I meet, that they say to me is that they find people here can be a bit fake.
Oh.
So like we can be something to your face, but at the same time, like not be as direct as, say, I don't know, Germans.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so they find it difficult, even though we're outwardly can be open.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To avoid conflict and like arguments and stuff like that. So we'll find ways to get around that and just be nice to someone, but not.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's also kind of an Asian sort of culture thing as well. I'm thinking like Japanese.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's like there are some crossovers there. Yeah, I guess that's sort of like a thing.
Do you think like having traveled, what's the main benefit that you found by traveling? Because you haven't just gone there for like a few days or even a month. You've actually stayed in Colombia for 6 months, and you're thinking about Thailand as well. You've done lots of way more like long-term travel.
Yeah.
Because most people, if you're working a 9 to 5, and I'm still working 9 to 5, most people are not able to take long periods of time off work. And if you are able to take time off work, you have to specify to your boss, I want to go at this date, 16th of September to the 18th of November. Everything has to be planned. And it almost restricts you, because in that time you want to do as much as you can. But if you want to stay longer, or if you want to, take extra time off, that's often not an option for monetary reasons, rent, mortgages, and stuff like
Yeah.
that at home. Whereas you can travel for as long as you want. And we're talking about how people can structure their lives, because we've got like people sort of almost work themselves into these traps where they don't have much freedom. Not to say that a mortgage is a bad thing, but if you have all these liabilities, you can't just quit your job. You can't just pack up and do what you want. But cost of living obviously is quite expensive here
Yeah.
in Australia as well. Do you think do you think people are just doing it to fit in, to just be part of the?
I think it's kind of like all they really sort of know have been sort of taught to sort of, I guess, live in society. Because I think like schools kind of optimize to sort of take you into a job like this, and university, and there's just societal pressures and stuff, and also there's like the society where it's like more of a conformity kind of. I mean, like maybe not as much as certain like cultures. Like I hear like in Japan, it's like a lot more of that. So like here, comparatively speaking, maybe it's more of it. I think a lot of society, and like the society in general, when there's a lot of people, obviously it's like some sort of people wanting to belong, right? Um, but yeah, mm, I don't know.
Mm, mm. Yeah. What else were we talking about? What else were we talking about before?
Yeah, yeah,
We had so
yeah,
many
yeah.
things that we were chatting about. Now my mind's just
Oh, that's
sort of
okay. Yeah,
gone blank. But
but I think like
we'll
going
cut
back
this
to
bit
like
out.
the yeah, like the cost of living thing. Like one idea I sort of had sort of but I mean, like, it kind of goes back to the idea of like, I'm kind of thinking from like the ground up again, because I think a lot of people are like, they sort of have like the 9 to 5 sort of like the main thing, and they're trying to build their life around that, and that's sort of like the main almost focal point, because it takes up a lot of time, obviously. But I've inherently tried to build my life up, like in terms of like all the aspects, like health, like what kind of relationships I want to foster, which places do I want to live. Like I try to build everything like just from the ground up, like without that sort of thing. So I think like I don't know, that's just sort of like a way I think I approach things so differently, and then I think going back to the cost of living thing, like I was kind of thinking potentially doing some sort of split between like maybe staying here like sort of part time, and also like staying in another sort of country part time where it costs is sort of lower, and sort of integrating to that sort of country and culture as well. So that's sort of like a way to remedy, I guess, that sort of cost of living issue, but also just I generally just like learning about other cultures and ways of thinking as well, and also meeting more online workers as well. But I also like meeting local people too.
Mm.
So yeah, obviously, like maybe for some people they kind of want the comforts of like staying in the same country for like a long period of time, but then it's also like certain other factors like I mean that's really like alert with this. I think in terms of like health, because it's like you see a lot of people cycling, jogging around, whereas maybe in some places where people are working too hard, maybe in America it's like not as much of that. But maybe there are also other places, well, actually, being in such places where that's even more heavily fostered. So it's like I'm thinking of also like maybe I go to places where health is favored more, or maybe um, I don't know, a place where there's more of an entrepreneurial culture, and I think the environment kind of adds up sort of over a long period of time. So I have a lot of those thoughts going on in my head as well. But yeah, it
Well,
kind of goes. Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm from Perth, and I moved here 7 years ago. And one of the big things I found is that Melbourne, it's much more competitive here, and there's people who want to do better for themselves. And in Perth, I'd say people are much more comfortable. People are happy doing what they do. I know I've got a couple of acquaintances over there that have their own business, but I'd say it's not the norm. And I moved over here because I mean, my family's moved over here first, but I wanted a bit of a change, and I wanted to challenge myself a bit more. And when I came over here, I realized everything is just like way more expensive, especially rent was really expensive when
Yeah,
I moved over here. Even like in the city, I'm living in the city at the moment. If you're going to rent a car park, how much is it now? Like 400 a month, even just a car park
right.
to
Yeah,
put your car. So I had two choices really. I had to find a way to earn a bit of extra money, and or or, or that's it. So I was lucky to have. I mean, I still have I work a 9 to 5, but especially in this economic climate, people say that 9 to 5 is very stable, even if you work for the government. But things are changing. You never know what can happen these days, and like starting your own business, having an extra source of income that you can rely on is, I think it's so crucial. And having watched Dan Co like you as well, and the way that the information, he's talking about the information age and how people are now starting their own online schools and distributing information online through all these decentralized platforms, making an income from that. I think it's a great time to do it, really. So I don't know where I was going with that. Sometimes
yeah, that's good. I do that a lot as well, and I can kind of see that. Yeah, so I understand. Yeah. It's like fucking like ramble about it.
I don't know what I originally was talking about. Like, one thing leads to another.
Yeah. I remember sometimes I was like answering this, like, oh wait, what was the question? I was like, oh shoot,
yeah. I should always try to when I do these live workshops with my students, I try to, in my head, just try to make things like short and sharp.
Yeah.
But some of the questions, it's not possible. I mean, to be short and sharp, it's sometimes you're just working it out yourself, thinking out what it means. So
yeah.
Do you have other friends that do this as well? Other people that do what we're doing? Because
I like here in Australia specifically.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to name anyone, but like I found it difficult to. I mean, I obviously, like you know Tim, Tim McMahon, and he's into flashlights as well, and he creates flashlight videos.
Yeah.
But can be a bit lonely in terms of not many people. Are doing it, and sometimes you can give yourself all these excuses. I think a lot of people want to do it. A lot of people. I mean, if you were to say, do you want an extra, a source of income or an extra way to a side project that you can work on something that you're interested in, I think a lot of people would say yes, but they don't want to. They either don't want to put in the work, or they're just afraid for one reason or another. And I was afraid. I was terribly afraid of coming on camera, having my face out there. I mean, I'm still not comfortable. I'm still not comfortable even till today, but you get better at it, you get used to it. I don't think I'm like the best speaker as well. I left to my own devices, I do have a lot of filler words here and there. Sometimes I find it difficult to get the words out of my head properly. I have in my head it makes sense, but having it come out in the right way, I find it tricky. But that's a skill you have to learn. And through all this information, if we're making like an information product of some sort, it's assumed that you can teach people, that you can verbally teach people, at least through a workshop or something like that, how to do something. So not everyone can do it, but at the same time, there's other things like e-commerce and stuff that doesn't require you to actually be on camera.
There's a lot of routes. Also, like writing online, which is like something I'm experimenting with as of late. So that's
why do you reckon most people don't do it or don't try something?
I think like a lot of factors, like you said, like they don't know where to start. They're afraid of what people think. There's probably a lot of other things that you're probably more aware of than me, because I've never really joined that sort of atmosphere. And also just like they're just used to they've kind of built their minds in a way where it's once again used to following orders, like for their whole lives in schools, classrooms, in like their 9 to 5, they keep doing that. And then like you mentioned before, which that kind of stuck out to me because I didn't think about this much because I'm kind of on the other side. But like there's 50-year-olds that have just like finished their whole lives of following other people, and it's like they don't know how to think for themselves. That's what you said before, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because you have people that I have a couple of mates who are retired, and one of them was very reluctant to retire because he didn't know what to do afterwards. Having a purpose, like waking up every morning and just going to a 9 to 5 is even considered giving you some kind of purpose. But if you don't have that, you've got to fill it with something else. And I think we're really lucky to be able to have something that we enjoy doing, or just the urge to learn and build, whatever it is. You're into Rubik's cubes now. I'm into art now. I'm probably not going to. Maybe I'll be different in 5 years' time. Definitely be different in 5 years' time. But the curiosity and the willingness to learn and develop ourselves is something that I think we're lucky to have. It keeps us creating things.
Yeah,
So
it's
everyone consumes.
it's like an ever evolving process. But I feel like um this is something like I saw this study, or I don't know if it's real or not, but it makes a lot of sense based on my observation because I've been around like kids of all different ages and teens and adults and a lot of different people. But I think like apparently like 96, 98% of like kids were like classified as like creative geniuses, and then like when you move it over, it's like the adult range or something end up being like six or under some really low percentage, and that kind of hints at the fact that kids are already fundamentally creative, and you can kind of see it like when they kind of play around, they make their own games, they don't really care about other people, and then like through like schooling and like people telling them what to do, then they kind of just slowly dies away, and it's kind of sad. So I think that yeah, I think one of the motives of me trying like not joining that atmosphere in the first place is just like I kind of wanted to like keep that sort of creative sort of kid like energy like alive and sort of live a life that sustained that sort of way of thinking.
Were you a naughty kid at school? Did you get in trouble a lot?
Um, I think mm, I think I would feel like this is sort of interesting. I would feel kind of like both ends of the spectrum. One time I was like absolutely teacher's pet, and another time I was just being like this wreaking a bit of chaos. So I've been on both sides. 'Cause my dad was more of like a like really good sort of teacher's kind of student, but I've kind of played on both sides. I think, yeah. What about you?
Oh, I was a nightmare. I was a nightmare at school, man. Had behavioral problems from the get go, and my parents were going through a separation when I was when I was about 12 years old as well.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of turmoil for me, and it was really confusing. But I mean, apart from that, I didn't like authority. I didn't like people telling me what to do. I so always as a kid, and when you get into trouble, when if you don't sort of just say sorry and own up to it, and sometimes I felt I wasn't doing anything wrong, and I'd try to stand up for myself, and that would just make the situation even worse, and they call up my mom, call up my dad, and then have to come into school and deal with me and deal with the principal and that kind of stuff. And it kind of goes back to how we're talking about creativity and kids and creativity. Does the schooling system, I read somewhere the schooling system is based on the kind of factory model of education.
Yeah.
So kids were lined up in this sort of the classroom style where they've got desks and stuff like that, so that they can assemble products, in a factory line. And the schooling system is built to put people into jobs that society requires, businesses require. It's not designed to create entrepreneurs or to create people
Exactly. Yeah.
who want to do their own thing. It's to it's not that option. When did when we went to school, they didn't say that was an option in the careers, the career pamphlets. You never saw that starting your own business. It's never. I never thought that I could do it. I thought that was just something for people who were born into it or super smart or had just the ability to do it. And so that belief, that negative belief that I have in myself, really held me back. And you kind of think to yourself, you've for me, I've worked in companies where I've sold a lot of products, worked in sales, I've worked in business development as well. And it never occurred to me once during that time that I could do this for myself, that I could sell some of my own products. I just didn't think it was possible. I just thought all I could do was just work for companies to do it. I just thought it wouldn't work out. But like I said, my grandfather was a big influence on me. He's the only one really in my family, apart from my dad's side of the family. They have some small businesses over in Singapore, and but it was more of like, oh, they're just a bit different. Don't follow what they do, and they'd even tell me, don't do what, go to school and get a degree in something like that, they'd even discourage. And you realize they were in that, just like my grandfather couldn't find a job when he came to Australia. No one would give him a job, because his English wasn't so good. And so, he's an immigrant. This was back, I don't know how long ago it was. So his only option was to start something of his own. And, for us, because we're born into this sort of environment, it's completely different. But you somehow got off this train track and you went onto another one very early on. You kind of rejected the path of, somehow you just knew within yourself that this wasn't right. And I felt that too, but due to pressure and due to like expectations and just like feeling that I could get some status or feeling that I could fit in better, go on, just do stuff that I didn't want to do. It's amazing how, like, what other people think can really influence you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm trying to think of it like why I sort of made the decision to sort of like kind of shift my mind. I feel just like watching like a lot of like, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
I was like binge watching like a lot of his videos, like make some TikTok videos or like do this, and then something will happen. And like when I look back on it, I really had no idea what the hell I was doing with social media content like the first year where I was like really seriously focusing on it.
You definitely know what you're doing much more than me.
But I mean, like, obviously, like, once you stick with it for a while, then it's kind of like inevitable to become like kind of good at this.
But you know how in the beginning you don't know what you're doing, and like there's that fear of, maybe I'll stuff it up and this and that, and a lot of people can't get past that. And it's even this thing that we're doing now. We're like, oh, just record it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, because I know I was a bit like that as well until I just dropped, just thought I'll give it a go, and then you realize it's actually not that difficult as you had.
It's really interesting because it goes back to the whole like sort of kids and stuff, like not giving like a damn. Like if there was like we were like 5 years old, so it's like we wouldn't really care much about. We care even less about like I kind of know like the life stuff is like, oh, this could be so much better because I've studied a bunch of this stuff a bit. But it's like it's just kind of sad thinking like we were always like this at the beginning. Like I think like people kind of view almost like the skill of like not giving damn about what people thinking, being creative, doing all of this like fancy stuff, exploring ourselves. Like it's like this. Well, this is so different from what we're used to. But it's like I think we were always like this since we were younger. But rather we learned sort of the skills that kind of suppress this side of us, and we're rather trying to like unlearn this stuff later on. It's similar with like a whole concept around like meditation and stuff, where it's like, maybe before like we think we need to buy things and do all this stuff to be happy, and then like I mentioned before, I did this 10-day meditation retreat where like you can't talk to people, you can't read, you literally can't do anything but just like be alone with your own thoughts. I was meditating like 8 hours a day.
It's hard, no phones,
fasting.
No.
Okay. Fasting 19 hours a day, pretty brutal, but your body gets used to it like anything else. And I remember it's like, it sounds so bizarre, but I had some like the happiest moments of my life during that time, because my mind, it kind of felt like, because I'd deliberately like removed so many things or let so many thoughts, negative thoughts, pressures, worries, everything about the future just passed by. Like my mind just without all of that just was just like really happy, and it was like kind of like its default state almost. So that kind of screwed me a bit. That was pretty. I mean, like I kind of it's one thing to sort of read about that, because I'm pretty sure like a lot of people have read about like happiness being possession, not being possession and stuff. But it's kind of another thing to experience it, I guess. So yeah.
I don't think many people have gone through that sort of thing.
It's pretty hardcore.
Even to get me to meditate for 10 minutes is tricky. I've almost turned myself into this really like, hyper focused, anxious person, just working on stuff all the time. But I need to also know, like, relearn how to wind down and stop caring about stuff. And yeah, I guess as adults, we just have too much going on. And I think Picasso saying something like he had to learn, it took him a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child again.
Yeah. So it's really fascinating just like seeing how it's like life's almost, for a lot of people, almost like unlearning rather than learning. And it's like, in the future, maybe like I had ideas of like, what if I could get my children just like learn the stuff that they'll actually use the rest of their lives in the first place, sort of unlearning things. So that's one idea I have in the future. Maybe somewhere in school, something like that. I don't know.
So like focusing on strengths.
Actual things that are like gonna be useful for like literally everyone.
I think school, like having a general education is good up to a point, but I think a lot of the stuff that I learned, like algebra and stuff like calculus, and I never used that.
Yeah.
I never used that. Forgotten it all. I did chemistry, forgotten that all as well. The only good thing out of all that was that I realized that's not what I want to do. So I think, but the breadth of subjects that they teach you in school, I think they're not keeping up with the trends of what's actually going to how people are actually going to make money in the future. And we're seeing this in the universities as well, and with AI automation. And they say one day we could have doctors, like AI doctors, they can retain a knowledge base, and they're going to know and remember things. I mean, the AI is going to remember things a lot better than we'll just have more knowledge built in. You've got specialized AIs that can recognize skin cancers better than doctors as well. So things that supposedly safe may not be safe, and the doctor may have like a custom service type role instead. You know, like a front facing thing. And do you think schools need to, and universities as well, need to adapt to this? Because I thought I got kind of ripped off at uni. Don't know about you.
I think that's like a lot of people, not just you. Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it's sort of interesting you mentioned that, because I think like with ChatGPT, like a lot of universities kind of had to sort of change certain things. But I don't think like traditional education is going to catch up so quickly. But I think maybe by the time it does, then a lot of weird things will happen with humanity by then, like 70 years into the future. Maybe. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, you go.
Maybe. Because I was kind of thinking, like, if I had kids, which I still plan on doing, and I took them to some sort of school, like, I definitely think of something sort of alternative. I don't know where exactly. Maybe it's somewhere else in the world. Maybe it's online. Maybe it's a combination.
Yeah, homeschooling.
Oh, yeah, like that as well, yeah.
There are people that do that. We're talking about, like, people that have homesteads and buy a plot of land.
Oh, yeah.
Far out and educate
But I'm like pretty down to do something like that. And then, of course, in order to do that, you need like time freedom and stuff. Then it kind of goes back to kind of what we're sort of doing right now, sort of getting that.
Yeah.
But I think definitely something around there where it's like they're actually incentivized to sort of pursue what interests them. Because I feel like the current like meta of like what people are doing, it's like just like it's very focused around just like money and security, and then like everything else is kind of built around that. And I think that's important to like an extent, but I think obsessing too much over that kind of makes you blind to everything else.
Obsessing too much over money
and security.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you forget what you even cared about as a kid. And I see that a lot.
Yeah. Like, I think for sure people do things that they don't want to do to get extra pay for stuff that they don't necessarily need. I've done that. I probably still do that these days. But, you know, as I get older, I realize really all this stuff that you have around you don't need the majority of it, and that kind of weighs you down in a way. Because if I want to move from here, thinking all this, I got so much crap around here, I've got to box it all up, you know, and you kind of you realize all this stuff. Yeah, you can't take it with you. It doesn't really make you happy to a certain. You know, it's that diminishing returns.
Oh yeah.
How many cars do you need before you're happy? How many houses or how many watches? That kind of stuff. So I don't really buy much stuff these days. And, you know, with clothing, you know, I have the same clothing. I wear this same shirt everywhere. I have like 5.
Oh my God, same. Dude, I have like 7 great t-shirts. I think I lost 3, but I have to buy more. Yeah. It's like the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also like, it's easier to make decisions as well. So go, what am I going to wear? I got this. But I do have a lot of leftover clothes that I bought from ages back, and they're still around, and they still confuse me. I'm like, what? I don't need all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess redefining what, you know, like even materialism. We have quite a materialistic culture, and if we're willing to live with less, and just prioritize the important things, the big thing in Australia is is property. You know, buying a bit of land or buying a property is so expensive here that I think a lot of people who are even working in high paid jobs, you know, even if you're earning, you know, six figures, a lot of those people are struggling to get a mortgage. Like if you're having to pay $1 million for a house, I mean, it's insane. What was it? It's like back in the 60s, it was something like 2 times a person's wage. I don't know what the stats are, but now it's what, I don't know, 10 times, 16 times. So although we're earning more, that amount of money can't get us much in Australia. But, you know, interesting to see that some people avoid that problem by living overseas. And while it doesn't solve all your problems, you know, it can allow you to also have like you said, a fulfilling life, and you can travel around. Ideally, I'd like to have both, so that you have enough money to be here, like that. What you're saying, part time here, part time travel, where you maintain a lifestyle here, but still be able to travel around, rather than have one or the other. But yeah, I guess, you know, the whole idea of starting my own business, and you probably get this as well, is just the scalability of it, where it may not be much in the beginning, but in the future, with more people watching, the more value you can provide to people, you're able to scale their income that in a way that you can't do with a normal job. I mean, you know, I don't have many subscribers now. I get out to 2,000 something people, but, you know, if you got up to like 100,000, you're making the same video, but you're having much more of an impact, and you can make more from that. So it's, yeah. I think in the art community, like I was saying before, there's a bit of almost, I wouldn't say a stigma, but sort of something like that about making money off your art, and very consciously trying to make money off your art, to commercialize it. I think there's a bit of a stigma towards that, because I think art people view as something that you do from the soul, and you do it without money, and there's that myth, you know, the starving artist kind of thing. But I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be a starving artist. You know, and you know, the whole point of like I said, starting a business is to make some money. It's a commercial thing, and you can beat around the bush as much as you want, but it's not going to do anyone good if you're starving, if you're suffering, not making enough to cover your needs. You know, so and if you're making money from an endeavor, it means that, I think it means that you're providing value to other people, right? Unless you're just ripping people off, selling some garbage, and then you're getting complaints and stuff. But those people don't last, right? I mean, you can only rip so many people off before you get complaints, and everyone just doesn't want to deal with you anymore. So you really have to, which is different from working in a job. You kind of, through this, what we're doing, you're kind of hunting in a way. And if you don't work, or if you don't be creative and come up with an idea, or think in a lateral way and make things work, nothing's going to happen for you. And then things can change. The way you earn something today, suddenly that platform shuts down, or this gets cut off, and then you think that's in the back of your head. So you're always having to adapt, which is stressful for people.
Yeah. But it's sort of interesting, because when you mentioned that, like, my immediate thought was like, isn't that a good problem to have, rather than just like doing the same monotone stuff all day long?
Exactly. It really makes me feel quite alive doing it, because like I said, when you go into your 9 to 5, you're often just doing the same thing day in, day out. You don't have the freedom to think the way you want to think. You have very little freedom. Like, you have to have your lunch at a certain time. You have to go there at a certain time at a certain place. So for me, you know, freedom is a really big thing, and it's, you know, freedom of thought, freedom of your body, being able to. And I watch this other guy, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Stephen Antonini. I think I sent you a video.
Yeah.
He talks about this as well. When you're around an environment, in a work environment, sometimes you got to listen to other people around you talk that are talking about very negative things, and you can't just pack up and move your stuff and go sit somewhere else on the other side of the office. You've got your own place to sit in, and then you're subject to this negativity. So there's really a lot of benefit to building your own thing. There's so many. I can't see any downsides of it. Really, I just wish I knew this earlier on. And for yourself, you have the amount of stuff you've achieved. At your age, 10 years from now, can you imagine? It's, if you just keep on, and if you have that, the one thing they can't take away from you is that attitude, that curious attitude, and if you're doing something you enjoy as well, not enjoy, but even if you're just curious, you just want to learn, you don't even feel the time go by. You can just learn and learn and learn. Never had that in a job before. Never felt that way. Maybe in the beginning when you're keen and you just want to prove yourself, yeah, that's a thing. But when you're truly doing something for yourself, you feel fits your values, and and not to say that you're always going to be into that thing. Like I said, art, flashlights, or Rubik's, it just transform into something else later on. It's very rewarding. I don't know where I was. Go with that again.
that was interesting to hear about. This is sort of just jumping back to like something you said like way earlier in the rant. But it was like the idea about how well said, you bought like a lot of things and you kind of realized they weren't really, or rather like you're trying to learn how to like buy sort of like less things, or focus more like minimalism. Focus less on like this kind of stuff. But to me, maybe it's because I'm just used to thinking this way already. But it's like I think it kind of opens, because I think when we kind of think like less of this, it's like we kind of think it's like a negative thing. It's like, oh no, we're losing this. We don't have this. We don't have comfort. We don't have this place. We don't have like this possession or car. But to me, it's like it kind of opens up more time and more energy towards the things that actually I think matter in the long term, like maintaining long-term fitness, maintaining long-term relationships, getting those experiences that you actually care about. So to me, it's almost like minimalism is like maximalism in a sense to me. At least that's how I view it. I just want to add that to like I thought you had like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's like reducing the things that don't matter, and to make up more time, or dedicate more resources to things that do matter.
Yeah, which we already know about, but we just kind of like chuck this out of our heads. At least most people seem to.
Yeah, because relationships are so important, whether people like to admit it or not. I mean, a lot of guys, we tend to be. I think we're more susceptible to loneliness, especially. As you get older, I find like a lot of my mates, they're getting married, or they just sort of settle down and they do their own thing. You don't see them as much anymore, and guys, we a bit of a generalism, but we're probably a bit more standoffish when we're meeting people, to let them into our social circles. Well, I'm not as trusting of people, but I fight a lot against that, and I try to give people a chance.
Yeah.
And I'm usually surprised when you let someone in, and I used to think, oh, maybe they're a bit dodgy, this and that, but people can surprise you, and it's easy to get jaded over stuff. What else were we?
Well, it's not like minimalism, like maximalism, that we ventured over to like relationships, and then you're talking about like so that was like the topic,
minimalism, like, so we talk about clothing and stuff like that. You eat the same food. I also like to eat the same food because not necessarily because I always enjoy it. I do like to eat the same stuff that I enjoy eating, but it's just easier. It's almost like meal prepping, something like that. I eat a lot of canned soup as well these days. It's like my emergency meal, which is becoming more of my usual meal. But the whole idea of what's going to make you happy, I think And then what's that quote? Happiness is a
Inside job or something else.
It's a direction. Happiness is a direction, not a destination.
Oh yeah.
So the striving towards something, is that the kind of dopamine hit that you're getting, that reinforcement, constant reinforcement that you're getting by doing something that you were meant to do, or that you feel like you want to do. That gives you those feel good sort of things, rather than achieving the thing itself. Like working to buy some car that you really like, which is what I've done. Then you get it. It's great. A few weeks later, no big deal anymore. So I think, that realization of going for stuff that, minimalism, going for stuff that's gonna really keep you satisfied in the long term. I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think it's like the definition of what this could be could differ for like people. Like some people just really like fashion, and then they invest in like a bunch of stuff like wardrobe, like related stuff, and like that's cool for them if that's what they value. Maybe some people don't like traveling as much as me, and so they focus more on like maybe one environment or something, and that's cool as well. I think it's just like figuring out like what that is for you, so that you can like then in turn maximize the things that what really matter. And then I mean there are certain things I've seen to be like I think reoccurring for people, like family time, if you're good with your family, or like long term relationships. I think it's like the biggest, I think, like factor of like happiness in general. From I think they did some studies or something, but I think it's just like minimalism. Man, I can't speak. Minimizing the things that don't matter, so you can maximize the things that do matter.
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
Here I am sitting around with like 4 different guitars.
Yeah. But once again, if you value like music and like stuff, and then like I see like 100 flashlights over there.
Yeah.
And it's like once again, it depends on what matters to you. It's not like necessarily you have to like be like cool like us, where we only have 7 great t-shirts or black shirts. But it's more of like that mindful decision, rather than like I'm just gonna buy this car because Bob bought this car, so I should as well. That's kind of dumb, but
like for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just add it.
Yeah, I think it's like basically being mindful.
And it's really weird because I like collecting like certain specific things as well. And I notice with old people, like people who are like old, whatever, like 70 plus or whatever, like my grandma, for example, she doesn't have much stuff, and she doesn't care. Like as you get older, it just seems like all these, you don't care about all this stuff, and when you start giving it away, you know. And I understand, like I'm sort of buying more into this whole concept of minimalism, but I haven't quite got to the stage yet where I want to give everything away. Certain things that I like collecting. Flashlights, obviously a big one. I get them, most of these as samples from companies, though, in my defense. But just making that conscious decision, like you said, if it really makes you happy, it keeps you interested as a hobby, go ahead. But if you're just buying stuff for the sake of it and thinking that's it's almost like drinking. It's like just a quick fix, and then you're going to be back at the same point.
Yeah.
How you're building your, you started off with Rubik's cubing content. Are you trying to move into another direction these days, and what sort of thoughts on that?
Recently I ventured towards like writing on Twitter and also like a newsletter. I think I ventured out because I kind of realized that through like the video making process, I mean, you kind of have the idea, you script it, then you film it, then you edit it. And I always like the ideation and like writing part like the most. So I was like, what if I just focus on this? So I just like, I think I looked up this like writing cohort like course online that I saw before like pretty briefly, and it just so happened to be closing like the enrollment on the same day. So I was like, okay, it's a sign. So I just took it up, and 1 year later I'm still doing it. I think I'm just exploring like different topics, like the kind of stuff we're talking about, because I think before I was like just really just focused was like achieving stuff, and obviously have a lot of authority in the area because I'm a three-time world record holder, and that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
And focus on that. But I kind of realized that I kind of like talking about a lot of broader stuff around like lifestyle design, etc., which we've talked about already. So just writing stuff there and maybe like helping, I don't know, other people like maybe move more in this direction somehow. I'm not too sure how exactly yet, but I'm just kind of figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you can box yourself in by doing one thing, but like having a niche like to start off with is good. I mean, that's how a lot of people seem to build a business in one
Yeah,
particular
I think it's
thing,
like
right?
yeah, that's sort of like the debate where it's like I think like
Generalism, being a generalist versus a specialist,
yeah,
and everyone's like at uni trying to be a specialist or being a lawyer or something like that,
yeah,
or doing one thing really
yeah.
really well. But
I think it's like value in like both. Like I mean, there are like a couple of things that I'm like pretty good at Rubik's cube solving, obviously. Social media stuff, I'd say like I'm alright at too. I mean, kind of make a living out of it, so maybe better than average. And a few other stuff as well. And then just having like kind of a broad, I think, range of interest in like fields as well outside of that. So you can kind of see things from like a I don't know holistic angle. It's like what was the quote? It's like if you only have a hammer, then all you see is nails or something. So I think that could be like the downside of like just being like an absolute specialist in one thing, but having life out of it. But yeah, I think having like the I think companies are something called like being a T-shaped sort of individual, but like being really good at a couple of things and then spreading out and a bunch of other things. But what do you think?
yeah, like polymaths. Have you heard of the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
polymaths? So like the hardcore polymaths, I suppose. It depends on the definition you want to look at. But what was I think Da Vinci was one. He
Yeah.
was a mathematician and artist. There was so many things that he was so competent in. But I think striving towards having a workable competency in a variety of different areas is so crucial because like you can combine them all together. I think this is also Dan Co talks
Oh yeah,
a lot
yeah, yeah.
about this stuff as well because I know, for example, my experience, I'm an artist, but I also know stuff about computers and I know how to edit videos. I know a little bit about marketing as well. So these things combined together can help me to earn an income off my art. If I
Yeah.
was just a good artist, I probably wouldn't earn anything.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of, but unless you're really at the top of your game,
Oh yeah,
like for
yeah.
you, you were at the top of you are pretty much at the top of the game in terms of cubing. You've won world records.
Yep.
So, just by that fact alone, people will go to you. But if you were just some person that could solve a Rubik's Cube in like 2 minutes, and I say just because I can't even solve a Rubik's Cube, so that I consider that pretty impressive. There'd be another 1,000 people who could do that, but not many. Like no one really can do what you do. So that in itself makes you an expert in that field.
Yeah.
So, but not everyone can get there.
Yeah.
And I'm not that super good at anything myself. I'm more of a generalist at different things. So that's how I've managed to do what I do. Because I couldn't.
Yeah. But I
maybe
mean, like,
one day,
I'm kind of doing something similar like right now in like the other new areas I'm exploring, and I don't remember where I heard this from, but it's like much easier to become like I don't know top 5% like 3 different things rather than like absolute top 1% like absolute very best in one thing. And I think that through this sort of like combination of skills, which you've obviously done like art and then social media and like workshops, etc., then you found something where you can kind of be like an expert in some sense. So it's like I think in this day and age, if you can be a polymath, it's like kind of a good thing because then you can kind of find like sort of your niche out of combining these 3 or like whatever different things together. It's like maybe for me, like I've experienced like living in another country. I've experienced learning another language. I know I use social media, obviously, like doing sales calls and like a bunch of other sort of skills. And maybe I can combine that to make sort of something sort of like niche specific to like my own skill set. So in some sense, like as Dan Kerr I think says as well, like you are sort of the niche. And I think it's try to think of things that way. At least for me, because I find that if I box myself in, then it just doesn't work. I just want to break out and do something else. I mean, there are benefits like sort of niching down, focusing on one thing, and also like making a lot of money. Usually, it's like they say to reach it. What's it? Niche. The riches are in the niches, or something like that. I'm probably pronouncing them wrong, so I can't get the right.
Niches,
But
yeah.
you get what I mean, yeah. But it kind of depends on like yeah a lot of things. Yeah, it's pretty broad, open sort of field to explore.
I find, working on different projects one after the other really works. Yeah, that works quite well for me. I can't concentrate on more than one thing at a time, and I listened to some podcasts about Elon Musk and how he basically does that serial processor. So he'll work on one of his businesses and then he'll stop, work on another one. And for me, I found that really worked when I started my second YouTube channel, and it gives me kind of like a renewed interest in the art, because I'm sure you've done a little bit of art here and there, but there's a lot of feeling, a lot of emotion sometimes that goes into art itself. And I've learned as well that you don't necessarily need to feel like you're in the mood to do art. You can get into the mood while you're doing it. A lot of people think I'm not cut out. I don't feel like doing it, and then they won't do it. But you can get inspiration along the way. You can generate that. You can definitely generate that yourself. But as an addition to that, when I swap over to another thing I'm trying to learn, and then swap back into art, I find that I've got more renewed interest. I've got more motivation towards that thing. That's a good strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes taking like a break kind of just makes you kind of feel like, yeah, that's kind of what you wanted all along. Or maybe sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you take a break and it's like, okay, I think I want to branch out to other stuff, which I kind of did with Rubik's Cube. So, yeah, breaks are important. There's a random
Okay.
question. Have you ever
Yeah.
tried those like MBTI personality tests or like those things
Oh,
before?
yeah, I have. I think I come up with some kind of what was it? I don't know what the
Oh, right.
archetype
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is, but it was like some kind of leadership thing, leadership
Oh,
one.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wonder because like I know it's sort of some people say it's like sort of pseudoscience or something, but I still find it like quite interesting, and it's like you kind of like reveal stuff, and it's like oh this kind of sounds like me, and I want to kind of like box myself in, and like there's also like the sort of bias about how it's like for example they classify you as either like introvert or extrovert, whereas most
Yeah.
people are actually like in the middle, like unless you're like a psychopath or like you're just extremely introverted or something, but
I did psychology to uni. Did that for 4 years. So that they teach you there basically that the what's it, the
MBTI.
MBTI, the Myers Briggs, is pretty much pseudoscience, but I can see use for it in business contexts. And there's obviously those subscales that are included, but there's things like the Neo PI, the Big Five personality test.
Yeah.
That what is it? It's like neuroticism, extroversion, openness to
Oh yeah, the big five. Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and then there's certain correlations between people who are open to experience tend to be high in IQ as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, just this sort of introspective, trying to find stuff
Yeah.
out about yourself. There's
I was gonna
yeah,
ask cause like you see I see yourself like going like a lot of sort of tangents and it's
I
like
do.
shit, where was
Yeah,
I? And I was like that's just like me. So I was kind of wondering like maybe it's there's something in common there.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's sometimes I'm always in my head. I'm always in my head, always thinking about stuff,
Oh
and I
yeah,
find
yeah.
it
I'm like that.
difficult.
I'm like that too. Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think like better at sort of like, and I think that's one good thing about writing online. It's kind of like an outlet for like all my thoughts and stuff.
yeah, I
It
can
makes it something
definitely.
like kind of concrete rather than just like a garbled mess.
Yeah, I can definitely structure my written conversations
Yeah.
much better. And sometimes I'll just start with an outline of stuff. Like I'll have an idea and I'll quickly like just write it down before I forget it, and then I'll just build up a paragraph of something. Do people have you sent your writing to people before? What do people think of it? If you have you
Um.
tried to send it to people?
Oh yeah, like I write like on
Yeah,
Twitter, it's like 3 tweets like a day and like a newsletter every week, and then
yeah.
yeah, people seem to vibe with like some of the
You
ideas.
get
So I'm
some
like
good
trying
get
to
some good
like
feedback.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
trying to like yeah, still kind of exploring. Um, but yeah, a lot of people kind of like resonate, and a lot of the stuff I've written about is the stuff I just talked to you right now. I mean, writing is basically a reflection of like what your thoughts anyway. So and people seem to resonate with that. So
yeah. That's good if you have some if people are responding to it, it means I think it's creating some kind of value. It's resonating with people.
yeah,
Yeah, but like I said, don't know what it is. I've always been like this, and also, how do I describe it? Some people can talk, and it's almost as if they have a plan of what they're going to say. Do you know? But I don't often have a plan of what I'm going to say.
Oh, you mean like in YouTube videos and stuff, or like
anything really, unless I've got a plan, like an actual
oh
prepared flash, cards or something like that, and really make
yeah.
like
I
plan
mean,
it
like
out.
I think in a podcast situation like this, well, maybe if it was like so like a host, maybe I'd have quite specific questions to ask or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I think the last time I did something like that, actually, I just kind of just randomly came up with them on the fly. Yeah, I kind of don't really plan either. I think for like maybe TikTok videos, if do like a voiceover style thing, or even if I'm not, I tend to plan those, but I think on TikTok it's like a lot more like important, because like every second like really counts there. YouTube, I think I still kind of script. I think I'd write a script just like to clarify my thoughts and the idea I'm going in, and then like I might just ramble a bit side to side, but at least I have some sort of general direction. Like in this setting, it's like yeah, it's just everything's just like kind of whatever pops in mind.
Like for example, if I do a review video of a flashlight or something, I have a list of things that I'm going to talk about, and I even write out certain sentences to make sure that I say them. Otherwise, I go off on tangents. I forget to say things, or I'm just not able to talk on the fly like some people can. It's like I see a word I'm going to say something and I see a word in my head, and the next words only shortly follow the last word. Whereas I wonder if in other people's heads they see like the whole sentence, and then it's almost like a loading bar where it's loaded more before you before you speak. And in some contexts, you can just talk with such ease. It depends on the person and the context as well. And the more pressure there is to like, when you say something, if there's some kind of consequence. I don't know if you're in some meeting in the boardroom and with bosses and stuff. I don't know what to say. I become almost mute there because I'm trying to figure out what is appropriate to say. What should I, all these different things adding up in my head. Just I'm sometimes not able to function in that sense. It's almost like when you have a really good friend that you can talk about all kinds of stuff with, right? You don't have to filter anything. That's like the best feeling ever, because it's like a freedom. But in many contexts, I don't think you have that, especially even in a learning context where you're teaching people things. You really have to make sure every word counts. You can't just ramble on about stuff and hope people get it.
Yeah, I think it's very like as you said, like context dependent. Like people kind of like think sort of differently. That reminds me of like a sort of interesting story that I had as like a primary school assistant, because I was meant to try write up like a lesson plan to teach like I don't know how to determine like the area or like perimeter of like a rectangle, and I think I was meant to write like a detailed plan like how to do X, Y, Z stuff. And I was just like a bunch of like scribble like a mess or something. At least that's what I'd seen like the teachers like, well, what is this? But I kind of knew how to interpret that. This is kind of good enough, so yeah. But I think it really sort of depends, because I think like for example, like the Rubik's Cube stuff, I just like know that thing like ridiculously well, and I've explained it like under thousands of times, so I can just like do that on the fly like super easily. I don't have to think about that much, but maybe some other topics. But I mean, like even a lot of these topics we're talking about now, like I don't think I've really spoken with them with people that much, but I've kind of gone through them in my head so much that it kind of feels like I can talk about them very easily. But I think that it kind of comes down really to sort of like level of expertise. Because if you ask me like talk about like flashlights and I don't know like anything, so that'd be like pretty difficult. Then it's like how much time have you spent thinking about this specific thing, and this whole like lifestyle solopreneur thing I've been thinking about for like a very long time. So I have so many different branches of thoughts I can go in without without any real trouble, and it also just interests me a lot too.
The competency in the knowledge that you have of topics, obviously, that make you more comfortable.
And that's also like another sort of key reason why, going back to like another key theme we had, like I sort of evaded the whole like 9 to 5 thing, because it kind of feels like you're spending 40 hours like a week doing, maybe there's certain skills that can be useful. I don't deny that for sure, but it kind of sounds like people kind of hate or like don't really like what they're doing, and it's like it's such like a huge sort of like time loss that you could spend doing things that you actually care about, or maybe are actually more useful. And that seriously like compounds like very heavily over time. So that's like another key reason why I decided not to join that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of jobs that are required in society. Like there's some construction jobs. There are doctors, nurses, those essential sort of roles that I'm glad that people go for jobs. And My sister's a nurse, for example. But there's also a lot of jobs that are. Have you heard the term bullshit jobs?
Yeah.
Where it's almost like a lot of paper pushy jobs, middle management jobs. A lot of jobs that don't. If they disappeared off the face of the planet, like no one would notice. No, it would make such a little. What do you call it? Impact, and you're seeing a lot of corporations, like a lot of the technical staff are doing all the work, and there's lots of management, these hierarchical management structures, and you really wonder what these people actually do. And larger companies become more inefficient, as that's what I've read anyway. They become very inefficient, and that's what sort of efficiency is a big thing for me. I like that, putting in, like a one person business thing, for example. You're putting in X amount of effort, but you're getting like disproportionate returns from that. And that interests me. So lately I started getting into, there's lots of different ways to earn income online, but I recently started getting into like Amazon affiliates, Amazon sales. So that's one example. There's so many, but allows you to sort of get out and scale what you're doing a little bit more. I'm always keen to try new things, and I'm open to trying new things. At least I tell myself that. And I think I was mentioning to you before, like and we're talking about unlearning stuff as well, where we have basically built our own platforms solo, right? But there comes a stage where you have to bring other people on board, and that involves you unlearning, that you have to do everything yourself. Yeah. And then how to structure it in such a way so that other people can come on board and you feel comfortable, and what are they going to do and what are you going to do? How can you, there's so many new lessons that you have to learn. That's kind of the stage I'm in at the moment, and I think I'm always constantly learning, as you know, as yourself as well. Where do you see, I mean, you mentioned before you're going to go and you're focusing a lot on this, like on your writing newsletters, I guess this self-development journey that you're going through. I don't know, that's a bit cliche to say self-development journey, but one thing I found really valuable talking to you is just you have such a unique perspective of having not gone through the same 9 to 5 thing as everyone else, and your mindset is so completely different. And I have to sometimes explain things to you, like what it's like to work, and it's funny how you took 2 weeks on a job, and that was all it took for you. And my first job was at Hungry Jack's, flipping burgers, and my manager at the time, I still remember this. I was using the wrong tongs. You have the red tongs and blue tongs were like uncooked food, and I mixed them up. And this guy, he took the tongs and he threw them at me, and he's like, "You told me you were a fast learner on your resume." I still remember this till the day. Look, there is value in, I think, sometimes experiencing those sort of jobs that you experiences are always, well, most experiences are good, right? And if you don't have any other, because you have a lot of young people that don't have any plans to start their own business, they know what they're going to do. So I think sometimes it's better for them to try these things and to get a maybe see what it's like in that position. Yeah. But you reckon? Do you reckon it's better to skip that altogether? And how do you motivate young people to, do what you did? Because it's rare that you had that level of insight and focus at a young age. Yeah. No one knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I guess I was sort of like your brother. I kind of worked hard to get set luck for like the whole Rubik's Cube thing, because that was kind of like my catapult in order to sort of doing all this sort of like solopreneur, my own thing. So that's something I had an interest in since like 2014, since I was in high school. So that was kind of like what led me towards like going out. I'd sort of branched out more from the Rubik's Cube, but I think that was sort of the thing. Um, but I mean, like, I guess like the problem that maybe just going into like a job sort of mindlessly is that it seems pretty hard to leave from talking to a lot of people, and then that can kind of like be a problem. And then people, maybe younger people, might just spend too much money on like buying things and they kind of get stuck. So
Yes,
that's why I'm sort of
yes,
like hesitant
loans.
to like sort of. It goes back to like the whole mindfulness sort of thing, like, and then sort of. Hmm, I mean, once again, it's kind of hard to say, and then it also sort of depends like where you're sort of at, and then it's like sometimes people are just lucky having good parents like me, which is definitely a factor as well. But also things like I think potentially living abroad long term is traveling, and then I think letting your mind sort of I think wander and seeing what you can do with that. And then I know some people would just like, or maybe just thinking about like what it is really that you want to like really focus on like pursuing. Maybe some people just really like traveling a lot, and they just kind of travel and they have no idea what the hell they're doing, and then it's like, oh wait, maybe I want to make money being abroad, and then they might just like work at a hostel for like I don't know 4 hours a day, and then or maybe they make travel vlogs, or maybe they might just study how to become a monk. I don't know. There's so many like I think other options out there that I think people should explore, and
Mm,
it's also just like much easier doing that as like a younger person than an older person,
mm.
for like a variety of reasons. So
It's just weird how it's never suggested as an option through the education system.
yeah,
So you almost don't think it's an option, and when you see, I mean, a lot of young kids and stuff, they're watching YouTube, but I don't know, might be changing because there's so much of this content out there.
and like a lot of YouTube, like
Yeah,
a lot of young people these days say I want to be like a
YouTuber,
YouTuber.
yeah,
So
that's what they say.
so
Yeah,
I think it's great that
yeah.
people are starting to become more like aware of like all these alternative options. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more than just like YouTuber, and like it's kind of sad we're not really taught that in school, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, honestly.
And there's almost like like a bit of a ridicule towards that. Oh, you want to be you want to be a YouTuber kind of thing.
Yeah,
But I think I see YouTube as just it's almost like another marketing channel for a
yeah.
business. A lot of
I think
businesses use
maybe
that.
the ridicule comes from like maybe people thinking about doing more of like the viral kind of style of content, but there's like many ways of approaching YouTube
Cat
there.
videos.
Or just like Mr. Beast style, or like this is like a challenge where like pay me $100 and I will do those kind of like challenges where you have like big
Oh,
numbers or
okay,
like
yeah.
so maybe that's what people kind of think in
Yeah.
mind. I mean like there's a place for that stuff
It
as
just,
well.
I mean, it really the whole platform just allows you to amplify your voice, get to
Yeah,
out to more people.
I think that's the key thing, like, and that's the social media in general. Like, so I think viewing it from like that perspective, but like a lot of people just don't know anything about it, so they
Yeah.
generalize and a lot of stuff like that. So
Because people want to get famous and people want to get views just for the sake of it.
yeah,
You know. But also the other side is it's also a business. You're looking at it as a way to get more views, more engagement, more traffic to your business,
yeah,
and for you to earn a living
yeah,
and being an independent. But I think a lot of people who start out probably they may not have that view of YouTube. They might think that it's just a way to maybe even just a way to get your voice out there. For me, that was one thing I wanted to express myself. I'm naturally probably quite a quiet person. At high school, I was voted the most quiet person there, believe it or not. You know, and almost when you get
oh, it sounds like me.
yeah, when you get told those things, you almost want to do the opposite. But you know, like you were saying, you know, when you're traveling, the context of where you're at changes your person because contextual personality.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
when you're in a context where you don't feel accepted, or maybe you just don't fit in so well, or you don't really gel well with the people, you're gonna act quiet. You're gonna not really
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
act differently. But if you're in a different environment where you've got people that you can resonate with and that you feel that you can voice your opinions, you're gonna be loud. You're gonna be open. I find that's the case, and by labeling yourself something doesn't do you any good. You can say that you're more inclined towards this way, but I'm always reluctant to say that I'm this way for a lot of things. You know, I mean, there are some views that I have that I don't think will really change that much, but can be limiting if you it's like the whole self-belief thing, right? If you believe that you're just the quietest person and you suck at talking to people, you're
oh
not
yeah,
even going to
yeah,
put
yeah.
yourself in an environment where you're going to talk to people. You're just going to think people don't like you. Or you think you can't talk on camera, and you think you're if you think you're a crappy artist, you're never gonna try. Self-belief.
Oh yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, I see it like all the time when I like talk to people. It's like I want to do it, but then it's like, well, like I want to do this, but I'm an introvert, so like then I can't do all of that kind of stuff.
Because you're like world champion at cubing. Do you think that there was some genetic thing to it, as well as the self-belief that you're like, yeah, I can do this?
Oh yeah, this is interesting. Yeah. Because I mean, like there was once a time where I didn't think I could solve the Rubik's Cube like at all. Like, I think when I picked it up for the first time in 2009 when I was like 10 years old, I tried doing it for like a while and I couldn't even solve one time. It's like, damn, this kind of sucks. And it wasn't until like 4 years later when I saw someone else, he brought his Rubik's Cube to class and solved it in like 30 seconds, and then I was only then when I kind of saw someone else do something like that, and I was like, oh wait, maybe I could do this as well. So I learned how to do it over the course of a week, and then it kind of just went like from then onwards. But I mean, like
a week's pretty short time though. I have to like,
if you have like a tutorial or something, then
Yeah.
I think it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I know some people legend like a day or two faster.
My God. Yeah.
But I think it was kind of a gradual sort of shift, because I mean, like back when I did it, I didn't think I'd break like a bloody world record or anything. It's kind of just gradually just me getting addicted and like liking the process, and then I was like, oh wait, if I went to a competition, I could maybe get like a podium position, and then I did do that, and then I became like a national champion, broke a national record, and it kind of just like slowly kind of kept going like bigger and bigger, and then of course like I got the world record, and now it's like, but that's I think one great thing about that experience, that like it kind of makes a lot of other seemingly difficult activities maybe just like going a different path, or like traveling abroad in like a dangerous country, like it seems like almost like inconsequential compared to like, that achievement in some sense. It kind of almost feels like maybe it's like a weird problem to have, but like I'm sort of struggling to find like something that can like entertain me enough to sort of reach that sort of like height in some sense. Because it's like, this is I remember someone saying this, Gary Kasparov, who was like the
chess champion.
Yeah, chess, like multiple chess championships.
Russian,
I think after his like first win in like 1985, someone was like, "This is like the highest you'll ever be," or something. That was something I had to kind of like grapple with. For, like, it's sort of a weird problem, right?
Yeah.
A couple years, I think, after that, but now it's like, I kind of don't really care about that anymore, and it's like, I still have a lot of years ahead of me to do some like cool, grand things. Maybe grand in a different way instead of just like a bunch of random views on TikTok. So, yeah.
But the skills that you've picked up along the way, and you have like a lot of viral videos. I've never had a viral video in my life, so it's, I mean, there's a sense of luck in it, but I think a lot of time the videos are curated and there's skill behind creating it. It's not just blind luck. I mean, some people get lucky with it, but those skills can be used in so many other avenues wherever you go. But I was going to ask you something again, like the focus, the level of focus that you had. Do you get obsessed with? Do you have obsessions with specific interests that you just swap between interests? And stuff like that? I get like that too.
Yeah.
But how do you, with the Rubik stuff, you got up to world champ level kind of thing. So how did you maintain that focus for so long, or was it just natural?
I think like there was definitely some times where I sort of teetered off. Like I think during 2014, 2015, I took like a big break, and then I kind of got back into it again. And then I think maybe 2016, 2017, I took it a bit more seriously. But I think like a lot of just achieving a bunch of things definitely sort of helped out with that. Because I think like when I started taking it seriously in 2016, I could see my times kind of like going down gradually. So that's obviously motivation, and then like gradually just breaking some records, and then like getting like this position in the world. So, and then I think there was like this strong desire to sort of kind of prove to myself and maybe the world that like I was something important or something significant. But I didn't really feel. I felt like it was sort of like a lacking sort of sense in me in regards to that.
It's really fascinating how negative emotions can motivate you if you use them correctly.
That's why everything like really comes out of mindset. I think at the end, like maybe some people like I'm working like a job that I don't like, but it's like you can kind of use that sort of as like fuel to sort of like towards like your creative outlet and stuff. And it's almost like it's kind of weird once again, but like after like those like records, it almost feels like I kind of lost a lot of motivation in that sense. Like, I don't have something. I remember after breaking records, I was just like, damn, what do I aim for now?
Once you achieved it, you realize that it's not the
exactly, yeah. And once again, everyone kind of knows this, but it's like it's another thing to sort of like really experience that firsthand. it's still definitely, of course, worthwhile aiming for that kind of stuff, definitely.
Yeah.
But it does really sort of, yeah, make you think.
And to maintain that as well, it's difficult, like, because not just skill wise, but motivation wise. Once you get to the top, I
Yeah.
always say the wolf at the top of the mountain is not as hungry as the wolf at the bottom of the mountain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you've already finished. You've done the best that you can in this thing, and so you're like, "What's the next? What's the next? What's the next challenge?"
Yeah.
And then and that's all you have to do. That's all you do. You just find the next challenge.
Yeah, that's pretty
Like-
much what I did. I just did a bunch of for instance, like Ruth people call them like side quests. I just do a bunch of other random, like seemingly unrelated sort of stuff. But I think it's cool though, because I think like a lot of our conversations like frozen like a lot of things like completely separate to that I pretty much just worked on over the past couple of years, and it's like yeah, another sort of big sort of ground goal, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, it's interesting. Like that this whole idea of having a personal brand as well, which is why I started a second channel, because I don't want to be boxed into one thing. I know my interests are going to change, and I want to have the freedom to explore different interests, whether I'm maybe good at them or not, but almost give me an excuse to not have to make the same content all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I always make art videos, you make Rubik's videos, but you know, that stuff gets old after a while. You kind of want to, even if you're good at it, you know, like there's times where I've not wanted to paint. I've taken like a year where I just didn't paint because I was sick of it.
Yeah.
But maybe there's ways that you could keep up with the cubing and find different, like for me with art I change subjects that I paint, I change mediums, like you can use different games or something like that. You know what I mean, that have similar rules, not similar rules, but you know, explore other games and things, and do videos on those. At the moment I'm playing with polymer clay. So at school I won a bunch of awards for clay sculptures, and I've been trying to get back into it. I kind of suck at it now. It's been so long, but it's something I want to try again, and that kind of rekindles my interest back into watercolor painting afterwards as well. But yeah, I think sometimes it's a shame to just let that go, but maintain it, but then also dedicate more resources to something else that could not only benefit yourself but benefit other people on a wider scale. You know, with art in general, you may, okay, I'm painting a landscape or something, but what's the bigger picture? Maybe there's mental health benefits to it. There's giving people something to do.
Yeah.
You know, giving people a purpose. You know, I've had a lot of people message me from the Facebook group that I run, that I've helped them so much just to get past difficult times, depression and stuff like that. And that I don't know about you, but when you get, you know, sometimes you don't take on board that as much as you should. You know, you get the positive feedback. I say, oh yeah, sweet, that's good. But if, you know, I think you should sort of sometimes take those times to like, you know, pat yourself on the back. You know, we always hear the negative. I get some negative. You get negative ones as well. I get negative
Comments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, but those ones, you know, you get weird people messaging you and just saying stuff that, you know, really rude stuff, and you remember those.
Just a negative bias in the brain, really. Yeah.
But can't stop you. You can't. I think that's another thing that people worry about. What other people, you know, you know. I don't know, when you started your channel, I had like 0. You know, when you have 0 people watching. I had my mate from work, and I was like posting a thing. Oh, what do you guys want to see me paint? And it was just like him and 2 other people.
Yeah.
I felt ridiculous, right? And I'm streaming, and there's like no one watching. That's so hard in the beginning. It's so hard because you rather than strangers, I think it's like the people that are around you that you worry, especially if you're at work. If you're working a 9 to 5, you worry people find that and think you're an idiot or something like that. But I guess the regret of not doing it was just greater than the fear of people ridiculing me for stuff, and giving, every year that passes, I'm giving less and less of a shit about what people think. But I do care what people think, of course. I think that everyone does, but you shouldn't listen to everyone. I think if someone, like if you had some constructive criticism for me, I would really listen to it, you know, because you know what I'm doing. We're working in a similar sort of field. But if it's someone that doesn't know what they're doing and is just a troll, why should you take that on board?
Yeah, I think what you realize that like once you receive enough of these, like they really know like nothing about you. I remember this one time some guy left like a negative comment about like why didn't you share like this in like this video? And like literally 4 seconds into the video, I showed this exact thing. But it kind of showed you that they haven't even watched the video, and then they say that. So I think once you kind of get that and you get enough sort of hate comments, then you kind of realize that. And then I think I was trying to make like a piece of content where I was like kind of showcasing these hate comments just for fun, but and then I tried scrolling back. I actually really struggled to find one, and then it kind of makes you realize that you kind of exaggerate in your head a bit. It's like I got like maybe 99 positive comments instead. So that's kind of interesting as well. I think it's like we kind of take it totally out of proportion, and they kind of don't really know ourselves either.
It's a psychological bias, isn't it? It's one of those things where I can't remember what it's called. What we remember negative stimuli a lot more. It appears more salient, just more memorable to us because it could have a survival advantage to remember such things.
Yeah,
and we exaggerate the effect of such negative things as well. Like being socially ostracized would have potentially, killed us once upon a time, but now it has no effect. Well, usually no effect.
Yeah.
Because we don't rely on like a tribe of people to go hunt food and stuff anymore. Just go down to Coles downstairs to get some food.
Yeah.
So we still have this old, what's it? It's old firmware, I guess, old software.
Yeah.
That's built into us, and the great thing about people is that we're adaptable. I think we're made to adapt based on the context. So the epigenetics, where you have certain genes that turn on and off, the interaction with the environment. So if you put yourself in a certain context and you stress yourself in a certain way, you can reverse direction of the tide, direction of the water. To a certain extent, there are some things that I don't think you can really influence much, but with this sort of thing, it's possible.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That was a long podcast.
Yeah, man. So maybe we should end it.
Oh,
now.
sure.
I don't know how long we've been talking for. It's nearly 8 o'clock. Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was fun though.
Yeah, it was good chatting to you.
Likewise.
And, thanks for watching.
Cheers, guys.